Hello, I'm Miranda Kahn, and welcome back to our Newsmax TV GOP post-debate coverage. All night we've been asking you to tell us who you think is winning this third Republican presidential debate. And here's how you voted so far. Take a look at the numbers. There you have it. Donald Trump has 65%, maintaining that lead. But take a look from the last time we gave you our poll results. Ben Carson was in second place last time, but look at that. Ted Cruz now neck and neck with Ben Carson. Ted Cruz has 12%, Ben Carson has 10%, John Kasich 1%, Carly Fiorina 1%, and Marco Rubio 6%, so he's in fourth place right now. Jeb Bush, though, 1% right now. There is still plenty of time to cast your vote. All you have to do is go to newsmaxpolls.com, and we'll bring you another update on the numbers shortly. But for right now, we want to check in with John Bachman, who's standing by with some very familiar faces. John?
Yeah, that's right, Miranda. We are here with our special panel of guests, some familiar faces you've probably seen on Newsmax programming. Javier Manjarrez, managing editor of SharkTank.net.com. I always mess that one up. He's been covering the Florida presidential race very closely, involving the candidates Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio, so we'll get his insight. We also have John Brown, who was an advisor to Margaret Thatcher in the UK, but now he's here, a United States citizen. It's great to have you with us, John, as well.
Thank you.
Also with us, Glenn Downs, former chief of staff for Walter Jones, member of Congress. Lisa Ruth, former CIA officer, has a vast knowledge of foreign policy, security, and intelligence experience. And Dr. Lisa Palmer, who's a special guest because she's a psychotherapist, and we all saw some behavior, maybe mostly coming from the moderators of the debate, that made us scratch our heads. But first, guys, we want to focus on that exchange, I think, between Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio. That is something that we all agreed that is going to be talked about a lot tomorrow. So let's go ahead and play that exchange, the back and forth, and then we'll get our panel's response on the back end.
You should be showing up to work. I mean, literally, the Senate, what is it, like a French work week? You get like 3 days where you have to show up. You can campaign or just resign and let someone else take the job.
You know how many votes John McCain missed when he was carrying out that furious comeback that you're now modeling it under?
He wasn't my...
No, Jeb, I don't remember.
Senator.
Well, let me tell you, I don't remember you ever complaining about John McCain's vote record. The only reason why you're doing it now is because we're running for the same position and someone has convinced you that attacking me is going to help you.
All right, Javier, I wanted to ask you, I know you've been following this race inside the race very closely. Right. We can all agree that Rubio came out, but do you think this was a pre-planned attack by Jeb Bush?
Well, absolutely. I think Jeb Bush came out over eager to attack Rubio. Excuse me, and he just walked right in. Rubio just leveled a nice roundhouse to the head, and I think Jeb couldn't recover from it.
Now, Lisa, I wanted to ask you, too, because Jeb has faced some criticism for an unwillingness to go after some of his opponents in a very strong way. And this was, part of the strategy of this debate. He was going to go after Marco Rubio, somebody that Hillary Clinton and the Democrats have mentioned that they are concerned about facing in a general election. What did this exchange tell you from a psychotherapist perspective about how comfortable Jeb was with this attack?
Jeb Bush seemed very agitated, and I think it was very typical of him from what I've seen in terms of his presentation. He's been attacking a lot of the candidates, but I don't really hear much about what he wants to do, and I don't think that he comes across very strong. So I think he's coming across weak, and I don't think this will help him. Yeah,
Jeb mentioned during the debate that he doesn't fake anger. Maybe not an angry moment for him, at least today. Different story tomorrow. Lisa, you were receiving some text messages from some folks who said maybe this is the end of the road for Jeb Bush.
I think pretty much the people who are talking to me are saying this. Jeb certainly didn't do himself any favors here. And I think we're going to see a lot of the donors pulling out from Jeb. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jeb drops out of the race very soon.
Glenn, you kind of had to wince a little bit when you watched this go down, right?
Yeah, no question about it, John. You know, as Lisa just indicated, the donor class and the political class in Washington are very, very anxious to winnow this field down, to get so that there's one or two, let's say at the most, insiders to take on these outsiders. And the fact that Mr. Bush did so poorly in that exchange does not harbinger well for him, I think.
And I have to agree with you there. Mr. Brown, I wanted to bring you in this conversation as well. Your response, your reaction to what you saw in that exchange between Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio.
Oh, I think Jeb Bush sealed his own fate.
Simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, it was an unprovoked attack, a scurrilous attack, really, because Rubio is campaigning, so obviously he's less in the Senate. And a professional politician should understand that. and he made a scurrilous attack, and I think it's going to hurt him severely.
Was it his approach to the attack, the way he handled it? Because there has been a lot of criticism. I'm a Florida voter. I wish Marco Rubio was in the Senate more than he has been. But was it a fair attack? Was it just the way that Jeb Bush tried to execute that?
I think it was an unfair attack. I'm a Florida voter too. And these are both people from Florida. In fact, we have 3 people in the race from Florida.
Right. Jeb Bush from Florida as well.
4, that's right. And so I was ashamed, frankly. I thought it was a scurrilous attack. Well, ashamed for the Republican Party. It was a most un-Republican Party thing to do, to attack one of your own people in such a low-down, scurrilous manner in public.
Now, somebody else who has received a lot of criticism from his own party for the way he's handled his business in Congress is Ted Cruz. I want to play that clip again from Ted Cruz, where he goes after the moderators of the debate, and then we'll get the panel's reaction on the other side of that.
The questions that have been asked so far in this debate illustrate why the American people don't trust the media. This is not a cage match. And you look at the questions. Donald Trump, are you a comic book villain? Ben Carson, can you do math? John Kasich, will you insult 2 people over here? Marco Rubio, why don't you resign? Jeb Bush, why have your numbers fallen? How about talking about the substantive issues people care about?
What I thought was done so well by Ted Cruz in this is that he managed to kind of cast off that reputation he has as a quote-unquote wacko bird, somebody who fights with his own party, and unify all of these people on the stage. Was that the most impressive moment of the debate for you, John?
Yes, it most certainly was, because the central issue of this whole debate, in my view, is that the American people realize that our country is cascading downhill 60 years ago from the richest country on earth now to the largest debtor, and we're looking for a Republican candidate who can stop the flow. Actually, to reverse it and enhance our position is going to take single-term limits, but at least let's get a leader in there who's non-establishment Republican Party, because the cascade downwards was the responsibility of both Democrats and Republicans, the establishment. And that's why Trump and Carson and Carla are leading, doing so well. And I think the fantastic movement of Ted Cruz today was to cast himself, to manage to edge away from the professional establishment politicians and get it towards the camp of the non-establishment Republicans, and I think he did extremely well.
We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but we have been talking off camera about how some of those donors who have been backing Jeb Bush might be looking for a new place to send their money. Javi, if you're looking at this debate, who is the candidate, if you're going to jump ship from Jeb Bush, who is the candidate that gets those dollars?
Oh, definitely Senator Rubio. And first of all, back to Ted Cruz. Outside of Democrat-like Republicans like John McCain, who believe he's a whackbird, most Republicans don't think he's crazy because he prescribes to the same things Senator Rubio, Rand Paul do, and they're not considered as outlandish as Ted Cruz. But yeah, as far as your question on who gets support from Jeb Bush, it's definitely Marco Rubio.
All right, I'm going to kind of go around the panel here because I want to get over to Glenn again and talk to somebody who's actually worked in the halls of Congress. What really is Ted Cruz's reputation in Congress?
Well, with the Republican leadership on both sides in both houses, the House and the Senate, he's perceived as being somebody that doesn't play along with the game plan, and that's anathema to them. I think to rank and file Republicans and those that are not as in tune with the establishment as Mr. Brown just indicated, Ted Cruz is looked upon more highly.
You don't want to say he's done damage, but if he were to get elected, of course you have to work with Congress when you're in the White House. Can he work with Congress, the leadership? We got Paul Ryan. We've got mostly the same leadership that we had when he is serving in the Senate. Can he work with those people?
Well, sure. Listen, if you win, they will follow. That's just the nature of the beast. And so whoever is going to be the Republican nominee, and if that nominee is the person that ends up getting elected, the congressional Republican leadership will follow the leader.
All right. We're going to continue to be here. We're going to talk a little bit more about the debate. We're going to kind of zero in on this narrative that we saw, how all the candidates, most of them anyway, kind of took on the moderators and the media, and why those were some of the only applause lines you heard. And I think this Ted Cruz thing in the Senate was all part of his genius diabolical scheme, just so people might know who he is when he wanted to run for the White House. But we're going to be back here, and we'll check in with you very soon. Miranda, we'll send it back to you.
Well, speaking of Ted Cruz, I want to take a look now at our latest poll results voted by you, the viewers. Let's take a look at our Newsmax poll right now. We just talked about Senator Ted Cruz. Take a look at this. He's now in second place with 12% of your support. Donald Trump is maintaining his lead, though, with 65%. Ben Carson is at 10%. Marco Rubio, our group is talking a lot about that, at 6%. There is still plenty of time for you to cast your vote. All you have to do is go to newsmaxpolls.com and cast your vote. We've seen a lot of changes going on since the beginning of the night. Just to kind of update you how much has changed, we went from Donald Trump getting 70% to now 65%. And again, Ted Cruz is now standing at second place. Go to newsmaxpolls.com and let your voice be heard. We'll be right back after this.